Dying Light 2 is almost here. Dying Light has been a favorite zombie game for a number of years among gamers, but for almost the same amount of time they've been waiting for the second installment of the game to come out. Now Dying Light 2 is almost here, and today we'll check out everything that fans of the game want to see in the second installment: the story, the graphics, the weapons, and all the details. First off, they just want to see the second installment. There have been so many different delays for this game that the first thing that fans really want from it is to just actually get it this time. First game came out in 2015 and fans really loved it. It was completely unique and it had some really great points. The success of the first game quickly inspired the creators of the game, Techland, to make another version of the game. They first announced the sequel to the game in 2018. At the time, Techland said that Dying Light 2 would be released in early 2020. However, in January of that year, Techland announced that the game would be delayed. We aren't really sure why it was delayed at the time, since the pandemic only became widespread a few months later. They couldn't really blame that for the delay, but then for a year they never gave fans any more updates on when they would be getting the new game. Finally, the confirmation came through that it would be released in December 2021, but again, delays pushed the release date, and now it's set for February 2022. It is so close now that I doubt they would push it even more, but we do know that the Nintendo Switch version will only be released a few months later. First thing that fans want from the game is just to get it. Next, a lot more parkour. The way that they used parkour in the first game was really one of the things that made the game stand out in the zombie game genre. Just for those that don't know, parkour uses real-world environments, and those that practice it uses everything around them to climb, jump, and swing along the way. Most of us would never be able to physically do it, but the gaming world gives us that opportunity to do it. In the first game, it was a really integral part of the game, and it was a lot of fun, but for the second game, fans really want the developers to push it even more. In the last few years, the sport has developed and created newer techniques, and fans would love to have some of those new moves included in the game, and to make sure that you could do a lot more moves than in the first game. Next, a great story and villains. The first story was pretty great. The villain was really good and evil. Rise was a former colonel of the military and the governor of Haran. He's done some really bad stuff, and there's a good reason that he is the villain. But the focus has still been more about the graphics and gameplay than the story. And that's great for a game, but still, fans really want to have a better story in the new game and an even scarier villain. We aren't sure if Dying Light 2 will be just in the same world or if it'll continue on the same story with the same villain. As long as they find a way to make it bigger and better than the first installment, fans will be sure to get behind it. Next, making it harder to get to safe zones. In the first Dying Light, they gave spaces where players could go to recharge their health and get away from the zombies. But in the first game, it was really easy to get into these havens in the game. Fans would love if getting into the safe zone would be a little bit more of a challenge. Possibly not so hard that you completely lose loads of progress if you do fail, because then gamers might just stop trying and get in there. And making it a challenge would be a lot of fun. They could add some harder puzzles or some bigger boss fights that need to be completed before you gain access to the safe zone. Or as some other fans suggested, they could require you to do some really challenging parkour moves before you're allowed to get in, or make it a sequence of parkour moves. For example, they can place the safe zone out of reach except if they can pull off the moves they need to get there. How about some even more impressive weapons? First game had some seriously cool weapons that were mixes of real-world weapons, and for the second game, fans really want to see a lot more of those modded weapons. The Buzzkiller was a mix of a two-handed hammer and a motorized saw, and it was a great imaginative weapon. Like that, they really made the game a lot of fun to play. We want to be surprised with a new game, even more than we were in the first game. They set the bar really high, and now they'll need to really step up the game even more. We'd want to see some of our favorite weapons coming back, but we just want them to give us new ones too, with even more intricate designs and cool concepts. Have you been waiting for the new game too? Are you excited to see Dying Light 2 has to offer? Share your thoughts with us in the comments. Next, we'll see what fans are hoping for when it comes to gameplay, the hours that the game will run, and even more. Let's check it all out. Fans want to see extended game. When you're playing for a game, you don't exactly want to be able to finish it in one night. Fans hope that the game would be really involved enough to enjoy enough gameplay for at least a few hours, but now that has changed and fans are hoping that it isn't going to be a case of being careful what you wish for. The developers have recently said that the game will take around 500 hours of your time, and then they clarified that it would be to experience absolutely everything. They did then say that if you only wanted to play the main story, then it'd last around 70 or 80 hours. But instead of those numbers getting fans pumped for the release, it was surprisingly had the opposite effect on many gamers. Some have even said that they canceled their pre-orders on the game because they didn't believe that the game would be great if it needed to take that long to complete. Some felt that it would be filled with a bunch of frivolous fillers that aren't really needed and are just there to waste your time. But there are others that have said that they're excited about the extended game and that they do believe that the creators will make sure that they really create a great game that's packed with real gameplay and a lot of extra free content. Fans also have said that they would love if the game could be built upon even after they have finished playing it, and that they hoped that a lot of the new content would be free to download after you have bought the game. They'd love extra chapters of the story, and right now the game developers have promised that the game would continue on for a really long time. They promised that the game will have at least 5 years of support after the initial release. The initial game would have 5 installments of content, and then in the next few months they will release a bunch of extra things after the release. And a lot of the new content is focused on gameplay and the story. They've already said that they would release 2 sets of challenges, 1 event, 1 story DLC, and 1 bunch of free cosmetics. They've also indicated that the 5-year support plan would include new stories, weapons, and enemies, plus a bunch of new events that'll ensure that gamers will have a lot of things to keep them entertained. We don't know how much of that will be free, at least there will be a lot of options available. Another way that the first Dying Light kept us really entertained was by giving us some really crazy moments that kept on surprising us. Like when you realized that you could push people off of the buildings. It was so much fun to keep experimenting and figuring out everything that you could do. Exploring new things has been a lot of fun, and that's another factor that fans really want from the new installment. We don't want them to just recreate the same surprising moments as they did in the first game. They need to keep it fresh and give us other mind-blowing surprises along the way. I don't know how they're going to do it, but that is kind of the point. It should be completely unexpected and nothing that we would see coming. Have you pre-ordered the game? Are you ready to play? Let us know in the comments. Thanks for watching.